Being gay was not being part of the mainstream at all.
You were either out and risked being completely out and at risk of violence, or you hid it completely.
So you want to know that I'm Chris Smith?
Dr. Rupert Whitaker.
Gay men suffer from AIDS because they are criminalised by society. And as a result of that...
By the end of the decade, 4,000 people in Britain will have died of AIDS.
My first experience of it was through my partner's illness and then death, and then my own illness. Terry died, and then other people just started dropping like flies. People died very quickly in those days. You would say to somebody, "Oh, how's Joe? I haven't seen him for a couple of weeks." "Oh, he's dead." But I saw him 2 weeks ago. He was absolutely fine. And that started to be really not unusual.
We simply didn't know enough about this thing, and there was quite a lot of fear. I was diagnosed very early in 1987. I immediately assumed it was a death sentence. I thought I was going to die in 6 months' time.
I was expecting to be dead within 12 months. And I lived with that for years.
How do you cope with that?
Yeah. You have to sort of get up in the morning, try and make the day the most worth living, and do what you can to make life a bit better. If you're still alive at the end of the day, great.
In London on Monday, Britain's first purpose-built ward for the treatment of AIDS will be opened at the Middlesex Hospital.
My name's Peter Godfrey-Faussett. I'm a Professor of Infectious Diseases and International Health.
The ward can take 12 patients.
Broderick Ward was the first dedicated HIV unit in the UK. And I did find when I arrived on Broderick in 1987, I think it was, that the team spirit was extraordinary.
It's a converted medical ward with 15 specially recruited nurses.
There are a lot of prejudices and attitudes around still, even today.
Jackie was great, Jackie Elliott. I loved her. She was somewhat maverick. She was prepared to bend rules. She was completely committed to the well-being of what she would call her patients. Sometimes people knew each other, and that could sometimes be awful, of course, because people would recognise, "Oh my goodness, it's you." They were my age at that stage. They were young men, they were reading the same books, they were going to the same shows, they were, actually, of course, they were often writing the shows. You'd disappear off and have a quiet weep about a situation sometimes. And conversely, we would celebrate some of the good times. We had, without doubt, the best Christmas parties and so on. That's partly because of our clientele. And then there would always come a time when people would sort of turn their face to the wall. A patient in particular, I remember, who just decided enough. And he just turned himself so that he was sort of facing the wall as we went round on the rounds, and then gently died the next day or the day after.
I can remember one of my doctors at that point saying something very profound to me. He said, "I don't know what your prognosis is going to be. What you need to do," he said, "was learn to live with uncertainty. Learning to live with uncertainty is rather an important lesson to learn."
Over those years, you lost people. And then you made new friends. And when you're younger, it's easier to do. And then they died. You'd think, okay, I'm starting to lose even the memories of my friends because too many people are dying. And I started writing them down, starting with Terry. And after I got to about 35, I stopped. Those were people who had meant something to me in my life, whom I had loved in some way, and that they had all died from AIDS. But by the time I got to 35, I thought, I can't do this anymore. More died, but I couldn't face tracking them, their names.
If you then got diagnosed with HIV, you were facing two diseases. You were facing the virus itself, but you were also facing this whole apparatus of shame and denigration that came on top of that.
People were chucked out of their homes, put onto the streets whilst they were dying.
There were many of our patients who hadn't come out to their parents about their sexuality. You had parents who were trying to come to terms not only with the fact that their son was dying, but also that he was gay and that he had a partner whom he loved.
The Princess of Wales shook hands with 9 AIDS patients. Doctors said it was a gesture which would explode the myth that the disease could be passed through ordinary everyday contact.
AIDS is a disease of marginalisation, of pushing people to the edges of society. Her simple act made a real difference.
There is now a danger that has become a threat to us all.
It was, 5 years before the government did anything noticeable about HIV. The Tombstone ad came out in '87, I think, and that was pushed by Norman Fowler.
So don't die of ignorance.
Norman Fowler, the Secretary of State for Health at the time, did take it seriously.
Well, I don't think we should underestimate the kind of revolution that's taken place.
It really brought the discussion forward. It also brought homophobia really forward. It really stoked it.
Today, Nelson Mandela looked more frail and pained than ever.
When we got to 2005, the trigger was Nelson Mandela.
His eldest son died of AIDS. Mandela made that public.
Mandela made this very powerful speech saying,
"We must not hide the cause of death of our respective families, because that is the only way in which we can make people understand that even HIV is an ordinary illness." I just decided, yep, this is the moment to do it. And I phoned up the Sunday Times and I said, I want to go public with this. I can remember thinking, oh my God, what have I done? On the Monday, I walked into my parliamentary office and there was a little note on my desk, "Please ring Mr. Mandela." The phone was picked up by Nelson Mandela. And he said, "I just want to say thank you and well done." And I have to say that sort of made it worth it.
I would hope that the 40 years that we've been through could be used to encourage people to have compassion towards others.
You can have HIV and you can lead an incredibly worthwhile life. And knowing that, and knowing that about yourself, is incredibly important.